Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our June University Center seminar. I'm Cecilia Pacheco and I'm the coordinator for our University Center, which is a partnership between stc.unm and UNM's Innovation Academy, funded by an EDA grant where we provide entrepreneurial training in the form of seminars, mentorship, and an entrepreneurial capabilities certificate. Today we have with us our UNM Gallup mentor, Vanessa Roanhorse, and she's accompanied by Liz Gamboa and Henry Jake Foreman from New Mexico Community Capital. And I'm gonna turn it over now to Vanessa so that she can get things started. Thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia. I appreciate it. We're really excited to be here today to just kind of share a little bit about what has been happening, really focused on Native-led organizations serving Native entrepreneurs, Native businesses here in New Mexico. It's a topic that I personally get asked a lot about in terms of whether it's local, regional, and even nationally around how and what are we doing that's uniquely different for our community, but also the questions are who is working to serve Native American entrepreneurs and businesses. And I think what happens oftentimes from my experience is while we may be a small percentage of the national population, however, the challenges that we've experienced starting businesses are very complex and complicated in the sense that we as Native and Indigenous First peoples of this country, we move seamlessly between rural, tribal, and urban spaces. And so for us, our businesses are constantly having to evolve and shape around who we are and how we're starting companies, but also where we're located. I'm here based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have a consulting company called Rainforest Consulting, which is an Indigenous women-led organization focused on trying to lift and support unheralded voices in the community economies, as well as looking at alternative ways to access capital and finance. Alongside that, that journey, I didn't find a lot of Native-led supports that really helped me think through my business model, as well as like the purpose of my company. And so I was grateful when I moved back to the Four Corners area here in the United States into Albuquerque 5 years ago, come July 1. I was able to find myself finding an organization which is called Mexico Community Capital, who has a program called the Native American Entrepreneurship and Residence Program. It was the only organization I could find across the state that was focused on serving and supporting Native businesses exactly where they were. It also came with a culturally relevant lens. And then the last piece, it was through that network that I found the incredible partners and future co-founders of Native Women Lead. Out of the 8 co-founders, I believe 6 of us went through the NEAR program. And so today is about just lifting the brilliance, sort of a different way in which I think our communities are trying to engage and think about business, as well as with the recent events with COVID-19 and the movement of Black Lives Matter. You know, we don't want to return to business as usual. We don't want to go back to whatever was once normal. We want to think a lot about how does the Native business model, how does Native entrepreneurship, with what we've faced to even be in these positions, but also recognizing that like some of the ways that we're approaching community and engagement through platforms like this, like Zoom, which doesn't feel as connected as it should be, but yet we are working diligently through multiple platforms so that we can invest and lift our small community and business entrepreneurs. We think we have some things to share and believe that it's possible for us to be linking arms and really trying to think about a new way of doing business. So I'm happy here as the mentor from Gallup, who's been working with UNM for the last year and a half, to be able to bring in not only my friends, colleagues, but my partners here in New Mexico who have been doing this work for much longer than I have, but also as we continue to strengthen our partnerships, new things that we're doing in light of today. So I would love for Liz and Henry to just introduce yourself, just share a little bit about yourself so everyone in the audience can get a sense of who you are. And then for those who've been able to join us today, I just also want to let you know that right now we're in panel format. And so we're going to kind of have this discussion. The way we've sort of pictured today is less presentation and more talking and really dialoguing around who and what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I also just want to say, and how New Mexico is a perfectly positioned place for Native entrepreneurs in business. So we're going to have this discussion. Please, as you're hearing, put in your questions into the chat, or you can put it into the Q&A. We're going to save some time at the end today to make sure that we go back and answer as many of those questions we can. And that will be kind of the process. But I'm super honored and pleased to be able to be here today with Liz and Jake. Liz, can I hand it to you first to do your introduction and share a little bit about yourself?
Of course. Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate it and appreciate the invitation to speak to you all. Yeah, we have a lot to share. So my name is Elizabeth Gamboa. I go by Liz. I'm an Indigenous woman. I am Mexican or Mexica, and I am Apache descent, Chiricahua Apache. I was born and raised in LA. Let's see how far, I'm not going to go too deeply into my background, but for the past 20 plus years, I've lived in the Bay Area, and I have called that home in Oakland. I miss it, but I'm here now and I'm super happy. I've been here for almost 2 years. I'm the executive director here at New Mexico Community Capital. And yeah, I think that's all for now. And I'm really, really happy to be working with Jake for sure. We really have some great tangential conversations that are really exciting. So yeah, I'll hand it to you, Jake.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, hi-ho, everyone. My name is Henry Jake Foreman. I'm absentee Shawnee from Oklahoma, as well as Filipino and Scots-Irish. I was born and raised here in Albuquerque, you know, and I went to UNM, believe it or not, for close to 10 years as well, where I got my bachelor's in nonprofit management and civic engagement and my master's in community and regional planning. And it was through this process that I got into entrepreneurship. And I wish I could say it was out of passion, but I think it was more out of necessity, right? To be able to take care of myself, to really help pay for school, you know, but really to teach and share this kind of amazing Indigenous models of development, Indigenous business models. I was also a high school teacher at the Native American Community Academy, where I was really able to apply this kind of passion of business and share it with other Native American youth. So I'm really honored to be here. Like you, Vanessa, I met you through the Native Entrepreneur in Residence program, and I'm just really grateful for that experience because it paired me with a mentor. It gave me a financial stipend, and it really helped prepare me to actually be the first Native American to win the UNM Business Plan competition in the history of that competition. So, you know, I'd like to share, you know, a little bit about that, I'm sure, as we go on. But I'm just really honored for the invitation. So thank you, Vanessa.
Thanks, Jake. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I was going to be like, I'm going to have to bring that up. The other thing I think Liz forgot to bring up is that Liz actually has done a ton of investing. She worked for an investment firm in the Bay Area doing various types of venture capital.
I was in financial services. Thanks for reminding me to bring up my background, career background. Yeah, I went back to school late, and I think that's hopefully is an inspiring thing for people that are wondering if they should move forward, if they should go back to school. And that's something that I did probably full time in my 30s. I got a degree in financial services, and I got a job at Morgan Stanley and worked and I had a general securities license for almost 10 years. And then I realized that I needed more, that I was so focused on sustainability, and I was researching water, and I was researching grid solar, and like my focus was outside of what I was looking at. So I realized that I needed to leave that And after a little bit of time away and a short sabbatical, I got my MBA at Presidio Graduate School in Sustainable Management. So yeah, really, I feel outfitted me to contribute and be an active leader here with this organization. But you know, my motto is it's never too late. And I think that holds true for entrepreneurs, that holds true for people going back to school, starting new ventures. It's like, we have one life, right? So that's part of what we do, is we meet people where they're at. So whether they're just out of the gate, they're just starting their business, this is their third business and they're starting, you know, they need help getting to that next point in a different sector. We hope to meet their needs that way.
Well, thank you, because I think so for me, I think a lot about how and why we start businesses, right? And then when we think about the financial sector, and we think about valuation of business and what's like a high growth business versus, you know, the rest of the businesses, right? Like if we don't have this idea of super hockey stick growth kinds of companies, are they worthy companies? And I'm challenged with that question consistently, because if you think about it, right, like in the United States, it doesn't matter where you come from or what community you come from, 83% of all entrepreneurs are unable to access formal financing, which means that 83% of entrepreneurs and businesses who are trying to get up startup cash, who are trying to launch something, there is some barrier to being able to just go to a bank and do it. And I think as folks of color, but as Indigenous people, you know, there isn't really enough data to talk about sort of the barriers of finance. And when I think about market-based economies, or I think about market rate, you know, oftentimes I feel like it's very limited in terms of being able to really support the types of businesses that we see in our economies, but also what I think, to your point, Liz, around sustainability, like what is the future of business? And like when we think about that, you know, I think a lot about the work that New Mexico Community Capital has been doing for Native entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs who are rural-based, tribal-based. The challenges that we're seeing are pretty big systemic issues: lack of internet, broadband, roads. I mean, with COVID-19, we saw complete disrepair or dysfunction of the public healthcare system. And yet somehow Native Americans have been starting businesses, particularly Native women, in the last 20 years at 2 times the rate that our white female counterparts are doing. So I just kind of lay that out there for folks, because we're starting companies at a faster rate, yet we're experiencing some of these bigger challenges. And we think about the access to capital challenges, we have to start thinking really differently about what we think success is, but also investability, and also the types of programs we need to be offering our community members. So I open that to you all to talk a little bit about why NEAR, why NMCC, and like what you guys are working on now, what you were working on pre-COVID and then post-COVID, that you know is about changing these systems of opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think I'll start just by talking a little bit about the free market economy or system that we've been in for a really long time. And it's a system that thrives on competition, right? Individualism. It's also unchecked that in the free market system, things are free. So there's no checks on consumption, right? There's no checks on, you know, they want to, the free market system, I guess the confines of that is you want to take away the artificial scarcities, right? So cut out the limits, cut out the ceilings, you know, that doesn't work in the system. But when you're talking about natural resources and water and clean air, and I mean, as people are competing and trying just to produce more and grow more and sell more, they're not taking that into account. So it doesn't really work for this in this system, right? In this time of climate change, in this time of like, what can we do and how can we move forward in a good way? And if we're going to move forward in a good way, we need to look at that. So, you know, as Indigenous people, we know that we're all related, right? In Lakota, it's Mitako Oyasin, right? All my relations. And that works, and it can work, and it can be applied. And it's something that we've known for centuries, right? Centuries. And this is a system that's been in place for 150 or 200 years that has gotten us to this point. So we try and look at that in our program and take all of that into account and bring it forward. And it's hard as Native people, it's hard because you're taking a way of life and a way of doing business and kind of forcing it into this Western industrialized model doesn't really work that well. So that's why I feel that, you know, the NEAR system and the NEAR program has been incredible, which then we had to say, oh, wow, people, you know, we're not really taught about financial literacy. I was not taught about financial literacy, about savings, about getting credit cards. Like, I did not have that education. And that's one of the ways that I'm gonna turn it to Jake at this point, that, you know, he curated and came up with this idea of financial business basics, which takes place on the Pueblo, on the tribe, giving people the tools that they need to do this work. So Jake, if you want to talk more about financial business basics, this is a good point.
Sure. And I'll preface that with kind of where I was pre-financial and business basics when I started the Native Entrepreneur in Residence program. So when I started, I knew I had an idea. It was a very kind of small business idea. I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to print some t-shirts, I'm going to make some stickers, and I'm going to help young people graduate from high school, right? Specifically Native Americans. You know, in order for us to really improve our economic situation, our social situation, we need to see an increase in high school graduation, right? I mean, we have the lowest high school graduation rates in the state and even the country, right? So that was my big premise. And through the NEAR program, I got paired with our senior advisor, Peter Holter, and he really helped me, tailor the language, right? I had a lot of complex academic language, right? This is a liberatory theology process that I'm going to help create, these tools to help liberate and elevate consciousness, right? Well, he was like, what does that mean? What's the business? What's your value proposition, right? And it took me 6 months to really figure that out and put together a pitch deck. But through that process, he showed me other examples of pitch decks, right? Of these amazing startups, right? With 9 slides, they were able to get millions of dollars worth of investment. So he was able to kind of help me tailor that and to put it into a way that everyone could understand what I was doing. And that's what really helped me win the UNM business plan competition, because I went in already thinking, you know what? The way that they're grading is unfair, right? Because if they're grading on the amount of profit that I could make, the amount of growth that could happen, I was maybe at the bottom of the list because profit wasn't my big motive. It was about getting Native youth to graduate from high school, to increase their income so they could help themselves or their parents, right? But it wasn't necessarily about that profit. So that's what NEAR helped me really understand that, you know what? Sometimes we do have to code switch. And we talk about that a lot, right? We have to be able to, share ideas with different people. And of course, judges, right? And people and professors and people in the business sphere, the majority of them aren't Native Americans, right? So we have to do a little extra of explaining, right? And talking about the importance of our culture and our worldview. So after I graduated from NEAR and I got that first $10,000 to build my business, we really thought about this concept, right? Of creating learning tools, culturally relevant learning tools, right? And to see this as a production company, right? We could produce engaging, relevant content for Native youth, and we could expand this into the realm of financial literacy, right? So everyone said, you know what? We don't want a whiteboard and a workbook, financial literacy, because that's what's out there, right? We want something that's engaging. Well, What are some of the challenges? We have lack of internet. We have lack of technology. All right, let's give them technology. Let's give everyone a laptop so they have that ability to get on, right? Well, there's still a lack of resources a lot of times, like you mentioned, right? Access to capital is a big issue. Let's give them a financial incentive. Let's give them seed money, right? I started my business, my t-shirt printing business, with $500 that I won at a competition, right? So we're like, okay, let's double that. Let's give them $1,200 to help with savings, to help them with their debt, to help them kind of start their business. So those were two key things, you know, that we started. And then lastly, let's make it engaging. Let's bring in Native American guest speakers, right, to talk about their experience, to talk about how they were able to succeed, access capital, right, save money. And I think the most important thing that we decided to do is really focus on families, right? That we don't operate in a vacuum, right? I work with my wife, I work with my 2-year-old son all the time, right? I work with family members. So let's bring in families and let's think of this as a family unit, right? And let's start each course with an Indigenous inspired meal, because guess what? Health is wealth. We really wanted to bring that into perspective, right? That wealth doesn't just mean how much stocks you own, right? What's in your 401k, but really what's your network around you, right? And how do you keep yourself healthy, right? To make sure that we could prevent a lot of things that people are suffering from. We saw a lot of medical debt that people had. We saw a lot of preventable things happening that really, you know, was a deterrent from them, you know, accessing capital. So we brought in all of these elements, you know, and lastly too, we also provided free childcare, right? As just a no questions asked. Come bring your children. We'll have activities for them as well. So that was an Indigenous kind of worldview put on this larger kind of financial literacy. And that's how we created Financial and Business Basics. And I'm really happy to share, we worked with over 70 families across New Mexico. It's been such an incredible experience, and we really just want to share too. We were able to work with, you know, Native Women Lead co-founders in this. We've been able to kind of reach multiple people. So we created a collective impact model. And, you know, for me, my background is as a researcher as well. I worked in the health sciences as a research assistant for over 5 years. So we brought in this kind of idea of community-based participatory research processes. So for a lot of people, right, I could go on about this project, and a lot of times it goes over people's heads. But that's the reality of being an Indigenous scholar, right, an Indigenous business owner. We're bringing in things like whole systems theory, design thinking, Indigenous cosmology, you know, quantum mechanics, you know, as well as the leading edges in digital marketing and research. So it's a lot, you know. I'll just leave it there. It is a lot.
It is, and
it's also like code switching too, right? So you have to do that all the time. It's like, what audience are you talking to? Are they going to understand what you're talking about? Are they going to understand the concept of a circle? That kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, like, just listening to it's, you know, that idea of having to layer and bring in the reality is that, like, entrepreneurship and business, I think in the more traditional model has to what you said earlier, Liz, was really an individual versus a mutualistic process. It was a competition instead of like it was a me versus a we process. But when you're trying to do that in Indian country, or you're trying to do that with communities that are built on intergenerational, like, engagement, that does not reflect at all what matters to them, right? Like, for us with Native Women Lead, the thing that we were constantly amazed by was when we surveyed, you know, trying to collect data that's never been collected before, the question on why you started your business was never to make money. That was never the first answer for why anyone started a business. A lot of it was because of culture and community, wanting to solve a problem that they saw in front of them or they personally experienced, and wanting to give back to the people, to the place, to those who are hurting. And when you come at it from that perspective, what happens is you hit these sort of traditional valuations of, well, what's your revenue model? who is your customer? Have you defined your customer? How much money do you need to make in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4? It's just a completely different way of seeing a business than we're used to thinking about. And so, or like programs like Financial Business Basics, by bringing in that whole community, that whole person, that whole system, it allows folks to be able to like feel comfort and safety. I know with Native Women Lead, the childcare thing, as well as offering, you know, quiet space to meditate, to pray. It allows, because I think from my experience, you know, to the financial literacy, to the access to capital, to treaties and broken treaties, we have a lot of trauma around finance. We have a lot of trauma around commerce and money. You know, before colonization, we had global commerces across the continents. But with this new form of commerce, it's really changed, and we haven't really been able to be in a position, I think, of comfortability. And so when I think about FBB and I think about the NEAR program, it's about helping us build that language, that code switching, that bridging, to be able to have these conversations beyond just our community. But I do think moving forward into the future of business, we have to be thinking about different ways to address like the access to more folks, to more customers, to more places to build these, which makes me think a lot about what are we doing next for our entrepreneurs. And, you know, for us at Native Women Lead, we are definitely been churning a ton of stuff out, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more about that. But I also wanted to see if you would be willing to talk about some new initiatives that you've launched because of the challenges we're seeing with COVID-19 and our community members not being able to sell at powwows or art markets or whatnot would be one. And then another one is partnership with tech companies to be able to sort of really address the big infrastructure issue around technology tools and internet.
So the model that we had, and you know, I mean, this model, the systems model is regenerative, right? So we want to continue to duplicate that, improve on it, bring in people, and you know, we really get a movement going, right? So it's a collective. So we started with the NEAR program. So we started with, you know, as a VC fund a long time ago. We were looking at social impact companies. Then we wanted to grow Native business-owned companies. So then we started the NEAR program, the entrepreneurial program. So that happened for 5 years. And midway through that, then Jake and others came up with Financial Business Basics. So again, we started this, you know, we're now in our 3rd year of this, of Financial Business Basics. And that also included the community of practice, which is kind of a post-care for both Financial Business Basics and NEAR. So it's a network, it's a place to network, which is one of the most important things you have as a business person in general, but as a Native person, because you share a common experience and way, you know, foundational beliefs. It's super important. So that's run by Vicky Pazaban and Jacqueline Roussel, who's also part of Native Women Lead, who's also a NEAR graduate. So we really like to see those patterns of people coming in and returning back, bringing their teachings in. They've gone out into the world, they're successful, they're doing it. So then we were doing, you know, just like so many people, it's interesting, who just said, wow, this was going to be my best year yet. Wow, you know, it's just like sales are great. All these shows lined up, and maybe it's because we've been just walking through the 46 that have graduated through our NEAR program. But people were hyped, they were excited, and then this came. So right before we parted in March, so we shut down here and worked remotely starting maybe March 20th, 21st, whenever that order came. But before that, Jake and I were talking just about what we could contribute and what we can put in place to help those who had lost all sources of income due to COVID, who still had inventory, who still had the means to work, who could still make things, but didn't have maybe a website. So didn't need a website, right? It wasn't really important to them if they were going to shows. And so this came up with Indige Exchange. So Indige Exchange brings in people who have graduated from the Financial Business Basics program, and also who have eventually will include some of the near folks as well, who don't have the platform, but want to share their works, right? Their products, their goods that they've been doing, probably has been in their family for multiple generations. So they want to continue this. So we gave them a place and a platform to do it, and that was built by Kalika Davis, who is our digital marketing manager, who is also a co-founder of Native Women Lead, who's also a near graduate. So I love this pattern that we have going on.
Also wife to Jake.
And wife to Jake. I was going to let Jake spring that, but yes, wife to Jake, mother of Kai. And Jake also worked, they worked together, which I think is really beautiful, that they're contributing in this way, not only to Financial Business Basics, but Indige Exchange. So yeah, Jake, if you would just talk about, how your process around building this with an eye on what was needed, right, with people that we saw all around us.
Yeah, well, it kind of came from two things. A, we wanted to continue to differentiate our Financial and Business Basics program. So like Liz mentioned, we want to create a full circle, a full cycle, a regenerative system, right? That, is a way that we're helping individuals increase their savings, decrease their debt, and just increase their overall earnings. So we needed to create a marketplace, right? And on top of that, we were learning a lot more about cooperative development, and we got to work with the Zuni Arts Cooperative and just hear more about their co-op, their first Native-owned co-op on Zuni. And we really this is the future of business, especially for Indigenous people. We need to be able to operate in a cooperative or collective. And the last thing that really inspired Indige Exchange was this challenge that I feel like is put forth on us of creating an investment-ready business, right? So Indige Exchange is way more than a marketplace, right? Eventually, we hope to see this as a financial technology, right? A decentralized system to decentralize finance. Because what we're doing is we are providing money up front for all the artists that are in need. So it's our way of responding to the community, but also honoring that core value that I think we all instill of reciprocity, right? So it's one thing, I love getting grants, right? But I love it even more if people buy my t-shirts that I spent my time on, right? It's my passion, right? So make some orders. And that's how we wanted to do it, right? That we wanted to sustain our kind of giving. So we've been able to work with over 8 artists. Believe it or not, we used the funds from an award that we received on Financial and Business Basics from New Senda Credit Union. They announced that we were our kind of, Financial Innovator Award on financial education. So that's how we were able to kind of, put our money where our mouth is and say, okay, we'll continue to innovate, because this is good for our business, right? To show that how we're innovating using Indigenous values. So we hope to expand this project and buy more artwork from all of our financial and business participants. That in turn kind of elevates our prestige about the program, right? In order to be a part of Indige Exchange, you have to go through the FBB course. And the only reason we do that is because within the course, we teach the digital skills, literacy, right? Of being able to put together a budget, put together an invoice, help do research, because all of Indige Exchange is online. So we do a lot of kind of communication using the Google Suite. And that kind of goes into the question that you were talking about, Vanessa, is, partnering with technology companies, right? And so for me, this is my metaphor. I wanted to go big game hunting. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to go for the big game. And for me, that was Google. Google is something that we use on a daily basis. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation. And the tools that they provide for free are really helpful for entrepreneurs, right? I mean, everything from understanding analytics to putting together websites and, acquire more business. We saw that Google has that opportunity, particularly their Google Cloud initiative as well. has been really helpful for us to think about, how can we become a Google Cloud partner? How can we sustain our nonprofit by working with this technology company? But, most importantly, by the end of this year, we're going to deploy over 120 Google Chromebooks, right? Laptops. They're very affordable. They're less than $300. And we've seen through COVID, like the Santa Fe Indian School, they were able to give out over 400 Chromebooks, right? Our stipend, $1,200, we started 3 years ago. The federal government, right, their stipend was $1,200. And what we've been able to see with some of these individuals, right, is that by these individuals going through our FBB program, they've been able to quadruple that $1,200 amount just by having the right tools at the right time, right? And that's something that we want to continue, right? And we want to advocate for. So, just to kind of add a little bit to this conversation, it's exciting, to partner with these tech companies, but there's also, some issues, especially around data sovereignty, understanding our data, because these are in fact, data companies. So how do we create a company that's being able to use data ethically, right? And something that we could own. So lastly, I'll just bring up what I'm wearing, my necklace and my earring. These are wampum. And wampum shells were used as currency with my tribe and a lot of tribes in the Northeast. So just to kind of share that we've had alternative currency models in the past, in the very recent past, and we want to look more into what are other ways to alternative currency that we could use to support our business. So yes, time banks, maybe wampum, we'll see. This is very valuable, but possibly not. We're looking into blockchain technology to see how we could continue to decentralize finance. But ultimately, this is a process, right? This is a learning process. And we want to learn together as a collective, as opposed to us, being able to come up with an idea and executing. And again, that goes into those indigenous values we were talking about.
Oh my God. Go ahead, Liz.
I was just going to say, in the exchange piece of Indigent exchanges, yes, it's based on that. And we've done that for people who have been in FBB, who have been out of work for a little while. So we've gone ahead and we've purchased the material so they can make the good to sell on Financial Business Basics. And that's just, they'll account for that as they take, whatever profit, we'll buy it outright minus the material cost. So it's like, there is not like this rigid structure that is in the industrialized model that is a machine, right? A machine is very structured, it's very rigid, you can't really do a lot with that. So we're just trying to bring in, it's like, okay, well, that's not real life for a lot of people, especially people who live on the pueblos or the tribes. I mean, it's hard. And things like gas money, right? Childcare, I mean, these kinds of things are so incredibly important and valued. I mean, that's what a great benefit. So I just want to say, we want to bring, it's also, we're working on keeping track of it all. Like, we have to, because there's not clear models out there, we're developing them as we're building this website. So it's working, but as we grow, we just want to make it a little more, we have to formalize it a little bit so we can have help building it and buy more product and be able to make these, exchanges, right? I won't say deals, but they're exchanges, right? What do you have? What do you need? It's just kind of a back and forth. So, yeah, and I just want to go back a second, and I want to say that, profit, we need profit, right, to continue, right? We have to pay our rent, we have to buy food, we have to buy our insurance, but I guess I want to stress that it really should be in balance. And I know that with Indianpreneurship or Indigipreneurship, it's called a lot of different things, but they term it the 4 Ps, right? Which is people, profit, planet, and prayer. So it is just one piece of business. And so that's something that we just, as a foundation, we want to continue to value, to communicate, and share it in our programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that kind of brings me to a couple of things, right? We touched upon And I think someone in the chat just named it. This is an ecosystems approach. We're not trying to, I mean, the reality is we're not trying to do it. It goes back to that all relations, that we're all related, that we're all connected as part of all living beings, and that as humans, we may not be the most important actor in this place, but we are an actor. And so, like, how do we look at our relationships, and how do we look at this whole community approach, this whole like holistic approach around systems, you know, people, planet, profit, and prayer, right? Like, how are we thinking about that through a business lens? And I would say, like, you know, it's taken us time, but being based in New Mexico, where we have such an incredible population of native, federally recognized tribes, and then native people, and then we live in a place like the city of Albuquerque, which has one of the highest populations of urban natives. We're in this like unique state of mind and opportunity, having the leadership we do at the Roundhouse, having leadership sitting at our Congress and Senate and House floors. It is a place and time in which I don't know if we could be in a more prime moment for us to really dig in and build what we've done naturally as Native people, which is, you know, we're all probably related in some way, and you are, if someone doesn't have food, you share your food. If someone needs a ride, you give them a ride. What we've done, I think, with my company, Roanhorse Consulting, with Native Women Lead, with New Mexico Community Capital, and even other partners like Native Community Capital, which is a Native-led CDFI, Change Labs, which is an incubator based on the Navajo Nation serving reservation-based businesses. Between all of us, we have created a community, and we actually meet every Friday as much as we can. And we meet to just talk through what's happening, what are people doing, how are they doing it? And one of the things that's come out of this incredible partnership is a number of us have actually been able to do something called co-op capital, which is being able to invest microloans into Native American businesses across the state. So Native Women Lead and Change Labs and Native Community Capital are also co-op capital lenders. And between all of us, we've moved probably close to $300,000 to $400,000 in capital. Well, maybe more, closer to 300. Sorry, that 4 is getting up there. But in all of this, what we're learning, and the work that I've learned, is that none of this works if we're not focusing on high touch coaching, mentoring, and culturally relevant technical assistance tools that's supported through deep wraparound supports, that's supported as well through using capital to help move those pieces. Because capital isn't the final piece, it's just one part of the need, the funding need. And so I'm excited to share, and I'm really looking forward to how Liz and Jake can share this, but Native Women Lead has partnered with New Mexico Community Capital because we are wanting to support those who are receiving our small microloan to be able to create a strengthened approach to coming up with a repayment plan. We want them to connect to the network of high-touch Native American mentors and coaches within the within New Mexico Community Capital's network. And then lastly, we've created basically a funding bucket, which is usable between our organizations to say, what is it folks need? We're not trying to be prescriptive. We're not saying you have to take this 101 workshop. We're saying, let's focus at what is most important, and let's utilize FBB's learnings and strategies. And if they don't have, you know, some of these technical tools, how can we partner together to ensure they get it? So I'm excited about this because this continues to see, you can start to see the evolution and the investment of this type of relationship and work that we've been doing across the state and now regionally across New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. So I would love for you guys to share a little bit about some of that work and how you see this kind of next evolution being sort of that continued sort of mission that NMCC has been doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're all about mentorship and learning. So whether you're a Native individual, business owner, tribal agency, we want to support your process, and we want to help you be successful, whatever, however you define that to be. So we are supporting the loan recipients from the Matriarch Response Loan Fund. We're hosting it on a platform called Eureka. It's Ureeka. So people who are going through our technical assistance program will have access to that, and we'll have a container or a community, which again, I feel is super important to be among like-minded business owners that are doing this work. So we are going to interact with them on that platform. And that is going to include professional coaching. So Jake is a member of another Kellogg-sponsored professional coaching program, which a lot of members of Native Women Lead are also a part of. Again, this regenerative model that I love. And so we'll do one-on-one. So, they'll really have an opportunity to say, okay, what do we really need? And just feel comfortable opening up to us. We're also going to have some teachings online. And then we're also going to we'll match people up as needed, right? If they need like cash flow statement work, if they don't understand, how a website work, marketing, whatever they need. So it is very, as you said, Vanessa, very high touch, wraparound services, which is critical. So, right, borrowing money is one piece. It satisfies one piece. But if you have that money, what else do you need? Like, what is going to keep you in business? What is going to keep you successful a year down the road? So we're addressing that need and support that way. And Jake, if you want to also chime in.
Yeah, we were just working with a recipient of this loan fund just about 20 minutes ago, and we're able to get her domain, and her website up and running, and we were able to help her kind of pivot, into more service-based work. Right? We see a lot of product-based entrepreneurs, and we're saying, you know what? We're all teachers as Indigenous people, and maybe you should think about, offering your services as well, to our organization. So that's the type of flexibility that we have, the creative thinking that we have. We also act as a fiscal sponsor for a lot of organizations, particularly ones that have a social enterprise type of model, right, that want to give back. So we could help write collaborative grants, help kind of determine what our future next steps are. So we're really flexible in that way. We really do meet people where they're at. And in some cases, we get the work done too, and that's a big thing that's needed. It's just, how do I get this done so I can move on to the next milestone?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I wish we had more time. I don't know why that flew by so fast. I know we wanted to open up for at least a couple of minutes of Q&A. But before Cecilia kind of jumps into that, I just want to share that, part of the reason I think we've all just found ourselves coming back to these same things around regenerative economies, circular economies, Indigenous ways of thinking and knowing, and using that as sort of our North Star is because I think each of us can share individual stories about how I needed a community to lift me to be successful. I could not have done it on my own, and I wouldn't want to do it on my own. And that lastly, by linking arms with each other in true partnership and relationship has strengthened my work, has strengthened Native Women Lead. And now we get to do exactly the same thing, not only with these 36 borrowers who we were super excited about, but we hope in the coming year into 2021 to open it up to the entire Native Women Lead network of over 600 plus Indigenous women across North America. And I think that's the opportunity and reach that we're seeing is by being nimble, agile, relationship-based, focused on the whole people, whole world, and then really trying to think about new commerce allows us to sort of be moving between the interstitial of what's been traditionally the core tenets of business to say, what if there's more? So I just want to say thanks to Liz and Jake for today and open it up for questions if we have any today. So Cecilia, have you been tracking any questions?
Hi, so right now there aren't any questions in the Q&A, and we've answered, there aren't really any questions in the chat, but if anyone has any questions, you guys can continue to converse, and I'll just let you know if any questions pop up, but so far there aren't any.
So one did come up. Thank you, Sage. Is the NEAR program still available?
So we're out of a funding cycle now. This is supported by grants. So we were, the Administration for Native Americans gave us the initial grant. We got a supplementary grant from the MBDA, and also Shakopee gave us money toward this, this program. So if there are any funders out there, we're open to funding, and we are in the process of formally putting together proposals for the next ANA grant round, which is coming up next month. So yeah, there's some interesting developments there. We're going to change the program just a little bit, but keep essentially the same pieces, which are near and dear to people's hearts and also have been incredibly effective. So yes, we are going to, I'm actually taking names. So if people wanted to send an email to me, they can do that. It's really simple. It's liz@nmccap.org. And I'm just taking names. So as soon as I get notification or we get funding for it, there's so many people that want to do this. So we're just, you know, it takes a little bit of an investment, a well worth it investment. So yes, and we're waiting for funding.
And then thanks, Liz, for that. Also, another question is, what kind of support can your programs use from the wider community and or national organizations? Like what are you looking for support for?
I think what we have going on with the Native Business Coalition, which is Change Lab, Native Community Capital, Native Women Lead, and Roanhorse Consulting, maybe a widening of that circle, just kind of that thought leadership. You know, I gain a lot from listening to, you know, Indian Collective webinars and events. I gain a lot from the Native Women Lead Transformational Thursdays. That's been really helpful to me. And even if you can't do it, if you sign up for it, you'll get a recording of it, which is really helpful. So you can listen to it at some point in the future. So I mean, for me, I feel that having that that sounding board, especially each Friday, has been so helpful for me because we all bring different things to the conversation. And certainly, you know, I just want to give another shout out to the Kellogg Foundation, who believed in this program, right? Financial and Business Basics, and has supported it through 3 years. So it's not just, it was part planning grant, part implementation grant. And we're so thankful for that. So maybe it's just having other people, you know, if you are believing and want to support diversity in finance, or, you know, I don't know, racial justice or indigenous rights and power, well, you know, there's a good chance to do that through these organizations and through organizations like ours who are supporting people through seed grants, through technical assistance, through training, through, you know, the hub on the Navajo Nation with Change Labs. I mean, you know, it's all, so many of these are grant funded. So yeah, I don't know. And Vanessa, you have you've presided and spoken at some of these events. The Native Learning Journey, I think it was last year. I met someone at Tamalpais there. It was fantastic. So just having those, more of those opportunities for people to hear what is really going on.
Yeah, we're really grateful for all the funders and foundations that have continued to pledge to continue to support communities like the Kellogg Foundation. I think now is the time more than ever to continue to invest in programs that support Native entrepreneurs. And I think it's important for us to have this conversation about investing in Native country, because I think that's really, you know, a good thing to say, but in reality, right, we know that there's a lot of money sitting on the table for investment-ready Native American businesses, you know, but they're not allowing us or providing that kind of expertise in how do we become investment-ready, right? And so that's kind of something that we've been thinking about primarily for our businesses and companies, you know, we do need to have this conversation about data sovereignty, and how we could build this into our program, but programs that serve not only Indigenous people, but all, you know, oppressed people around the world. We need help from developers, you know, people that are in technology to really help us kind of build these platforms. But I think most importantly, like what we're doing, these kind of collective impact approach, we need to have collective impact funding, right? So that we're not competing against each other, right, for funds. Because I know from national organizations, they say if one of us gets funded, they'll say, oh, well, we funded the Southwest. That's a check off the box. We have huge need here, right? And we don't want to do the poverty story again and again, but that's the reality, right? People that don't live here in New Mexico or the Southwest, you know, don't really understand the disparity or the inequity that we're having. So then they look at a price tag and they say, wow, this is an expensive program. It's like, yeah, this is generational. This is literally centuries of oppression that we're starting to deal with right now. So
right.
you know, for funders to be really open to that conversation and know that this is not going to happen within 1 to 3 years as well. You know, this is a long-term effort.
It really is. Liz, did you want to add any more? Because I think, Jake, you answered pretty much Dave's question around what's your message to foundations, banks who want to invest in these efforts but are reluctant because of past obsession with economic returns.
It's a hard one. I think Jake said it well, and I think what I said addresses it more or less. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think it's knowing who we are and what we do. So we have to continue to put ourselves out there, right? We have to have these kind of events, and frankly, I mean, this may be one of the upsides, right? To this, I mean, if there is an upside at all, I'm not even going to call it an upside. I take that back. But it's helpful, right? We're reaching more people, right? People are watching. People are working from home. They're like, oh, I have time for this. So I think it's getting the message out. It's staying, and again, I would say it's just staying connected. And this is a scalable model, what we're doing, this collaboration, not competition. So this works.
Agreed. No, 100%. And I have one last question. It fits really well in the 2 minutes, I think. So Susan says, you've mentioned many organizations that are supporting Indigenous entrepreneurs. Is there a central URL or location with a list of these organizations? I could answer this, but I would love to hear what you both would say about this. And remember, we've only got like 2 minutes.
So I would say that we have an entrepreneur link page on our site. So I suggest that all of those people that you follow, whether it's Indian Collective, whether it's Native Women Lead, whether it's Change Labs, you know, folks like that, just start with our collective, right? Native Community Capital. They'll have links probably on their site that says people to watch, people to see, read this, do that. So yeah, I would definitely check everyone's site. And if not, you know, just reach out to them. I'm sure people would love to educate you, right? It's like, oh my God, I check this every day. So sorry, I know we just have 2 minutes. Jake, do you have anyone else?
Yeah, definitely looking into other national organizations like the National Congress for American Indians. They have a lot of resources. First Nations Development Institute. Look up Native CDFIs. You know, they all have some type of resource or support for Native entrepreneurs. And Vanessa, I'm sure, please share as well.
I'm going to put myself on because it would be stupid for me not to. There's a little list in the chat for folks that were just, so one of the things I would just say to this question is, because I said this earlier, I get asked a lot, like, who are we? Who's out there doing this work? And the reality of it is that there is a ton of us doing this work and everyone is connected. Like this list of folks, we are all working together. Like, I just want to stress that as well. There isn't, and the reason I think is because we recognize as a small population across the United States that for us, we have to link arms. We have to build and strengthen these partnerships. And it's a matter of resilience and survival, but it's also a way for us to be able to sort of lift up the incredible work that so many organizations are doing. So many Native entrepreneurs are doing things no one could possibly believe. Where we lack is relationships. outside of these networks. We lack cultural understanding of how we got to this place in this country, and we lack belief that we're investable because of traditional 5Cs, which have been so damaging to many communities of color, as well as the misconceptions on us as Native people, our sovereignty, our treaties, and our tribal lands. And so there's a lot of work in just having to do that, what we call Indian 101, to get people to even begin to understand who we are and how we are. I hope today's webinar / discussion was just one way in which you can learn a lot about us. I encourage you to please reach out to Liz and Jake at New Mexico Community Capital or myself. We'd love to be able to continue to support and connect you to what's happening out there, but also more importantly, invest in the work, whether it's time, money, or support or amplification. So thank you so much, Liz and Jake and Cecilia, for allowing us to have this today. And thank you for everyone who stayed until the very end. And I hope everyone has a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.